Welcome back to Magnum Projects. Today we are back on the 73 Dark project. Last time we got the 360 Magnum all put together. This time we're going to be working on this A727 transmission that's going to go behind the motor, obviously. It's just a core transmission, picked it up for 150 bucks or something off Craigslist. We're going to go through it, and today we're going to tear it down and see what exactly it needs. So these Torquflites are really very simple transmissions. There's just 3 speeds, obviously. And there's all the business happens right here. It's pretty simple. There's just a few clutches. A lot of guys get scared off by automatic transmission work. A lot of people think it's like some kind of black magic. And the 3 speeds are dead simple. The 4 speeds even are not bad. I did a 46RE, which is basically a 727 with an overdrive section. That one's not bad to rebuild. If you can rebuild the motor, you can definitely rebuild one of these simple transmissions. Alright, so to start, we're going to take the tail shaft off. The 727s, there's a couple different tail shafts. This long one is for the cars. There's a shorter one that is for like heavy duty trucks, like RVs and whatnot. They have a drum parking brake. And then there's also the type that takes a transfer case for 4x4. So we'll pop off our snap ring cover here. Just a big Phillips head. So this transmission, I'm not expecting anything to be majorly wrong with it. It was pulled out of a wrecked truck, I believe, is what I was told. So I wouldn't expect to see anything other than just standard wear and tear. Maybe some overheated steels, but overall I'm not expecting to see too much carnage. Almost always these transmissions just wear out, basically, with the clutches and the friction material. It's kind of rare to see any significant carnage inside. If you do want to see some significant carnage, the 46RE, which is again just a 727 with overdrive, that I rebuilt for my camper van build, it was totally exploded inside. All the Planetary gears were cracked and all that, because the guy, the previous owner, had towed it rear wheels down without pulling the drive shaft out. So that would be an example of hard parts actually going, but usually it's just, again, frictions and steels, bearings and bushings. Another thing when you're rebuilding a transmission is it's tempting to go and take the transmission and wash it, power wash it, spray it down with water, whatever. But usually it's not a good idea to do that until you have the case totally disassembled, because a lot of the parts inside are steel and they will flash rust quickly if there's any water on them. So it's better to wait till you got the whole thing torn down and then clean everything individually. This transmission actually is really clean. It's not a grease ball at all. A lot of times this whole thing will just be caked in disgusting dirt, oil, grease. Go ahead and remove our speedo cable housing. Alright, now that we've got all of our bolts out, you can see the tail housing is free. As we lift, there is a snap ring in here that we've got to spread to let the output shaft come out of the output shaft support bearing. Or rather, let the support bearing leave the case. Off it comes. And you can see way down in there is the snap ring. Also back here we have the parking pole. So here's the output shaft support bearing. Definitely want to feel it for any roughness. We'll do a thorough inspection on every part once we have it all out. Bearing feels good so far. This is the governor. So it's centrifugally driven. As the output shaft speed increases, which is directly related to the vehicle ground speed. There's weights in here that fling out, and that's what regulates the hydraulic pressure. So pretty smart design there. That's how most hydraulically operated automatic transmissions work. Pretty much all the new modern ones are computer controlled. So next we'll pop our output shaft bearing off. Same deal, we just spread snap ring all the way up. Then our bearing will come out. Then we have our lower snap ring for the bearing. Next we'll remove our governor. We have another snap ring here that we're going to take off. And on the governor, on each side, there's an E-clip here that holds this rod. What we're going to do is pop this E-clip out. Just pry against the open end with the screwdriver. We can pull this shaft out. So all I did there, as you can see, this piece is right here. You just have to make sure it's pulled all the way this way, and then this will pull all the way up. The governor has a couple sealing rings that we will be replacing, even though they're good. So for now we'll set this aside. Next we're going to remove the output shaft intermediate support. This rod back here is our parking rod, so this is what actuates the pawl. Alright, now the support will come out. We'll inspect this for any issues later. Alright, now we're done on the tail end of the transmission. Next we're going to need to pop the valve body out. So to start off, we're going to pull both the shift select and the throttle valve off. We'll also remove our neutral safety switch. So we got a 7/16 bolt holding both on here. And on the other side we got a little nut. Take a screwdriver and just pry throttle valve linkage off. And then the shift selector has another 7/16 bolt on the other side. Pop out our neutral safety switch. Looks like someone used like caulk or something on it. Kind of funky. Alright, next up's our pan. Really kind of surprising how clean this thing is. Like I was saying, usually these things are all gunky. But this one is not too bad at all. The pan's even clean. Now this pan is junk, unfortunately, because the junkyards around here, they punch holes in the pans. You can see down here we got this little red plug. They poke a hole in it so they don't have to take a drain plug out. Or in this case, it doesn't even have a drain plug, so that's the fastest way for them to do it. So we got a new pan for this. Alright, we'll see how much liquid splooges out of this thing. Hopefully not too much. Oh yeah, look at that. Wow. Yeah, this thing is looking great. A little bit of material here. This is very normal and actually looks really, really good. See, there's a little bit of stuff here. A lot of times you'll get a good used transmission and it'll just be caked with a bunch of friction material down here. This one looks really good, which should make it an easy rebuild for us. Go ahead and remove our filter. I'll put that into the pan. See, you got a little bit of weird stuff. This looks like maybe band material would be my guess. You see how it's kind of crispy? Kind of looks like it might have flaked off of a band. But we'll see. Now we got a bunch of 7/16 bolts to take out for the valve body. You can see down here a little bit of our fluid color. Doesn't look too bad. A little bit of burning or friction material in it, but that's pretty typical. We are also going to be putting a shift kit in this, just to firm the shifts up a little bit. So I'm going to be going through that. Usually shift kits come with some really good instructions also, so it's kind of hard to mess it up. You drill a couple holes in like the separator plate, maybe file a little bit of stuff off the valve body, but overall it's not too bad of a job. Out comes our valve body. Gotta kind of wrangle the parking rod rather. And there you go. We're going to be disassembling this all the way down and cleaning it, as well as putting a shift kit in it. So we'll dig into that. Now we're getting into the actual business end of the transmission. So while we're here in the pan, we're going to go ahead and remove our band struts and band adjusters. So over here is the band adjuster. We just need to loosen the jam nut. Get a real wrench. This one's tight, so we'll use a socket. And then we'll just loosen the adjuster part all the way. And we'll just take it all the way out. Remove this spring also. So now we can kind of clamp the band a little bit by hand and remove our adjuster. And then on the other side we have the strut that goes to the actual servo. So now the band's just floating in there. Now for the reverse band, there isn't an external adjustment. We need to adjust it on the rocker arm. So we'll go ahead and loosen the adjuster. This one's an 11/16. And that should give us enough slack to remove everything. Now we get to actually tear into the internals. So we got to flip this over and take our pump out. So to remove the pump, obviously we got to take the bolts out. But there's a couple of these holes that are threaded for a slide hammer, because it's kind of got a press fit. So it can be kind of tricky to remove. But I don't use a slide hammer usually. I'll show you how. One little bit of trivia. You may have noticed that this transmission has a little rubber plug up there, along with a little brass strip with some marks on it. That's actually a timing access cover. The converters on the vans, where they have a doghouse, had a little timing mark so that you could actually time it, because the vans, obviously, it's really hard to actually get to the damper and be able to see the timing marks. So you time it off of the torque converter. Kind of interesting. One thing I'm noticing, on the pump stator support, there's some pretty serious grooving, so we may end up needing to replace our pump. But we'll see how that looks once we get it off. And again, on the inside of the bell housing, we're just spotless, which is kind of crazy. Any rear main leak or a front pump leak between the converter and the pump makes it all greasy and oily in there, but we're looking really good. So personally, how I like to remove the pump is get a screwdriver between the drive shell and the direct drum, and you just pry a little bit back and forth, and the pump will pop right out. If you guys over here can watch. Well, this pump's in there more than usual, but another trick we can use. We'll take the tail shaft housing bolts and run them into the pump where the holes are threaded. The tail shaft housing bolts are the next diameter up from the pump bolts, so these are the same thread size as the slide hammer that we thread in. So basically, it's just going to press against the transmission housing and pop the pump out. And we'll just work it back and forth. And there we go. Out comes the pump. So there's the pump. Here's the grooviness I was talking about. Can't remember if that's actually a surface that the bushing inside of the torque converter spins on or not. Could be nothing, I forget. Alright, so next, remove the whole forward drive assembly. There we go. Next we're going to remove our band. You can see it actually looks pretty good. Next we have this little spacer. You can see it looks like it's actually maybe coming apart. Or that may be little millings to hold oil. Then we have this snap ring that we got to remove. Remove our first planetary gear set. Got another bushing here, bearing. Now you can actually wait to remove that snap ring until it's on the bench, but here's our drive shell. Another bushing that comes with it. And we have our reverse drum. And this actually comes apart also. So you have another planetary gear set. Then way back in there we have our infamous sprag, which loves to just come apart. So we have these accordion springs and then roller bearings. And this acts as a one-way clutch. Now we can also remove our output shaft. So to remove the reverse band, we need to get the reverse band rocker out of the way. To do that, we need to pound the pin out that goes through here. So from the other side, actually it may be this way, I forgot. Gently drive our pin out. And once we've got enough exposed back here, we'll grab it with some pliers. And it should release and come out. You see this pin has an O-ring on it. So we're definitely going to be replacing that. And there's everything for the reverse band apply. And we just got a strut for the reverse band. And the rest of the roller bearings that fell down. Our reverse band looks good. Could be reused if we needed to, but we have a new one. Now we have just a little bit more to do. We got to remove these pistons. So first we have the center one. We're going to want to check the case for any unacceptable scoring or wear or anything like that. And these two can be kind of a pain. This one isn't too bad. Just get a screwdriver in here. Work the snap ring out. And it can be held with finger pressure. This one's a little trickier. Still be held with finger pressure, but it's a fair bit more. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but you can do it. They make little presses that you thread in here and here, and you just thread it down. That makes it easy. I don't have one. Alright, so there we go. Just takes a little bit of willpower. A little bit of sludginess back there, nothing too crazy. And there's how that goes. So there we go, now our case is just about fully disassembled. We don't need to mess with this apply arm or anything like that. We're not going to go super crazy here. There's a plug if you got to take that out for some reason. I don't know why you ever would. Now that everything is out of the case, we get to go into cleaning and inspection mode, which is the most tedious part of this, just like anything. Alright, so to start off with, we'll take a look at our front clutch. This drum comes up and off. And you can see we got our first set of friction discs. So we got this big snap ring all the way along here that we pry out just like we did with the servos. And you can see this is actually a wavy snap ring. It kind of softens the apply. Then we have our first apply plate. These are almost always good because they're so thick. A friction disc, which looks really good, but you can see it was actually deteriorating here. So it's a good thing that we rebuilt this. It's not super burnt or anything, but the little friction squares are coming off. You can see that. So eventually it was going to start slipping because only small parts are making contact. We got our first steel. This steel actually looks really good. If you look for any like bluing or heat spots, anything like that, that means you definitely need to replace them. We'll replace them because I've got them, but those could probably be reused. And we've got the spacer. Now to actually get to the piston, we are going to need to use a press, just because there's no way we're actuating that by hand strength. I can barely even get it to budge, so we're gonna have to put it in the press and fabricate something to press it down. An arbor press is ideal because you don't need that much force. It's not like you need 8 tons or whatever. You just gotta push it down with a lever. But I'm gonna use a hydraulic press because it's what I've got. Before we take the piston out, we'll inspect the outside of our drum where the band applies and check for any nicks or scratches, any kind of wear or hot spots. This one looks really good. If there's any grooviness, you just got to replace it. But this one looks really good, so I think we're good there. We'll also take a look at our bushing for any weirdness, scratching or wear. Looks really good. I do have new bushings, but there's no really sense in replacing them if you don't have to. They're kind of a pain to install. They're easy to mess up. You can do it, but better not to if you don't have to. That bushing looks good. Before we take that to the press, let's take the other set of friction discs out of here. So we'll remove our snap ring. We got our plate. Friction looks pretty good. Steel also looks good. Still riding on this friction disc. Yeah, overall we're looking awesome. So we can further disassemble this by removing the wavy snap ring at the bottom here. And then we got a plastic spacer. The spring. And then the shell will actually come off the input shaft. And then there's our piston. So these lip seals are what mainly need replaced in a rebuild. They wear out, and if you get any leakage past these lip seals, then there isn't enough hydraulic pressure applied to the frictions and they'll start slipping. This seal looks pretty good. It's still pretty pliable. Obviously it's going to get replaced, but this transmission probably had no issues at all before it was ending up in the scrapyard. So to press the piston down, I have just about the most rudimentary setup possible. It's just a piece of plate steel, some bolts with nuts threaded all the way down onto the end to the shoulder, put upside down so that when you press on the plate, it presses down onto the ring. So we're going to press that down far enough to take our snap ring off and then let the pressure off, and then the piston should come all the way out. That's all we need, just a tiny little bit. May actually need to readjust so that we have enough space for the snap ring to come out. That should do it. We'll carefully remove our snap ring. Looks like pliers are going to be the easiest way to go. There we go. We'll let the pressure up slow. Uh-oh, looks like I had the table up too far. Got these 3 springs, each separated by 2 posts. Keep that in mind for when we reassemble. We'll carefully pull our piston up, and there is the seal that we want to get after. Again, it feels pretty good, not quite as pliable as the new one, but probably still had lots of life left in it. Now we'll take a look at our Planetary gear sets. So remove our reverse band. Oops, forgot that was in there. This is what is the inner race of the overrunning clutch or the sprag. Got the shell. It's got this washer in there. Keep that in mind. Got the first Planetary. So what we're going to do is we're going to check all of these for roughness as we clean them. These should be super smooth. A little bit of up and down movement is normal. These are feeling great initially. Then we have the sun gear on the drive shell. Got another thrust bearing. Check the surface that rides against. Looks pretty good. This can actually be disassembled further. You can take this little snap ring in there out, and then the sun gear comes off of the drive shell. We have these bushings in here that we're going to want to check for any roughness. And if there are any issues, we will need to replace them. Might be a little nick there. Might be okay actually. And we have the other bushing on the other side. So there we go. Just about fully disassembled. The only thing that's still together is the valve body, but we'll do that all at once. We'll clean it and install the shift kit together. So what I'm going to do now is go through and clean everything. I like to use mineral spirits on transmission parts because it's not super volatile, but it does a really good job of dissolving all the ATF and taking all the grime out. This transmission's already really clean, so that makes it easy for us, but I'll just go through, get everything cleaned up. Did miss one more Planetary gear set. Forgot that was under there. So we'll just check everything with this, just like everything else. For the case, I'm going to pressure wash it. It's aluminum, so it doesn't care about water, it won't flash rust. Everything else, I like to use mineral spirits, like I said. So I'm going to get to cleaning, and I'll bring you guys back once we're ready for reassembly. And I'll let you know if I run into anything weird on any of the parts.